Sis, has a man's preference ever made you feel the sting of being unwanted? I read a comment not long ago and I haven't been able to shake it. A woman wrote that she believes darker skin-toned women are simply less desired, that we're living in a society where they're treated as last place. She said many men avoid dating darker-toned women because they don't want darker children, and that tells her exactly how they think society would treat those children. She said it's hard to sit with the idea of being undesirable, of being picked last, when every human being wants to be chosen. If you've ever felt that, I want you to know you are not being dramatic. You are not too sensitive. You are naming something real. Let's talk about preference. We've been taught that preference is neutral, that it's just taste, like liking chocolate over vanilla. But sis, taste doesn't come from nowhere. Taste is trained. And when an entire culture has spent centuries rewarding lightness, closer proximity to whiteness meant closer proximity to safety, to opportunity, to being treated as fully human, that training didn't disappear. It got inherited quietly, generation after generation, dressed up as personal taste, when really it's an old hierarchy still running in the background. So when someone doesn't want darker children, that's not really about beauty, that's a confession. It says, I know how this world treats darkness, and I don't want my child to carry that weight, which means they already know the world is cruel, and instead of standing against that injustice, they're planning around it on darker skin-toned women's bodies, with their worth as the variable they're solving for. That is not your fault. That was never yours to carry. Now hear me, because I'm not here to villainize. The people carrying this pattern are often carrying their own pain too. Pain they've never sat down and looked at, fear they've never named, wounds from their own lives that got twisted into a preference instead of ever being healed. Hurting people build protection. Sometimes those protections cost other people something. Both of those things are true at once. A person can be in pain and still be responsible for what that pain does when it lands on someone else. So we're not going to pretend this doesn't happen. And we're not going to pretend every person who's ever had a type is guilty of hatred. What we are going to do is tell the truth when an entire pattern skews one direction, generation after generation. It's just preference. Stops being a neutral explanation. It becomes a pattern worth questioning. What is that preference protecting itself from? What has that person never had to examine because no one ever asked them to? Sis, you can exhale. I'd like you to stand on this. In Song of Solomon, a woman speaks about herself. She says she is dark and she is lovely in the same breath, no contradiction between the two. She tells the daughters of Jerusalem not to stare at her like her shade is something to explain, because it was the sun that touched her, not a flaw that marked her. She's not asking permission to be beautiful. She's stating it. That's the difference between the eye and the heart. A man being visual isn't the wound here. That's simply how he was made, and Scripture doesn't shame that. The wound is when what the eye was trained to want starts wearing the disguise of just how I am, when really it's inherited, and it never had to survive an honest conversation with itself. The woman in that verse isn't waiting on anyone's eye to agree with her. She already knows what's true about herself before the room decides. Sis, you were never last. You were seen through eyes shaped by a hierarchy with blurred, broken lines. And this isn't a word for one shade of woman against another. This is a word for every woman watching, no matter your tone, because all of us inherited something we didn't choose, and all of us get to be the ones who finally look at it honestly instead of passing it down one more time. If this touched something in you today, I'd like you to type "seen" in the comments. Be that woman.